If you self-manage, it's great to have a full-time VA because you can also utilize the virtual assistant to help you out on the personal side.
Hello, everybody. This is Pavel with Leverage Podcast. Welcome back to another episode of Leverage Podcast, Power Your Business with Virtual Assistants. Today, we're going to be talking to Jasper Ribbers. Jasper, he's the legend of short-term rental legend, as his shirt says, right, Jasper?
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of our brands. Yeah.
One of your mastermind things. Exactly. So I'm actually glad to meet you and talk to you. I mean, I looked at your book, I looked at your podcast and your Instagram just to get an idea of what you do. And I'm pretty much impressed what you do with your short-term rentals. And you're well known in the short-term rental industry as the founder of Get Paid for Your Pad, a book and a podcast widely recognized as a resource on Airbnb hosting. So for those of you who are considering hosting your property on Airbnb, Jasper will be the person to follow. Jasper, I know you've been renting out your properties on Airbnb since 2012. So it's like 12 years ago, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you currently own units in US, Colombia, Thailand, and the Philippines, of course, right?
That's right. Yeah, the units in Thailand, Philippines, and Colombia, those are my personal units. But I also founded a company, FreeWild, where we have units in California, and we're looking to expand across the US with that brand.
Can you share some stories about your life? Basically, what kind of brought you to where you are right now in your life?
Yeah, it's as so many entrepreneurs. I think it wasn't originally my plan to run a short-term rental company. I kind of accidentally rolled into it. That's always how it goes, right? But yeah, no, I grew up in a small town and
then I'm just like a black hole, just sucked you right in, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll tell you a quick background. Grew up in a small town in Netherlands, went to university there. I loved numbers. And so I ended up going into finance. I was a trader for many years in Amsterdam, in Belgium, and eventually in Chicago. And then in 2010, I decided to quit my job. I wanted to travel and explore a little bit more of the world. So gave my job. I had an apartment in Amsterdam and I thought, let me try Airbnb because if I'm home in Amsterdam, I will still be able to stay in my own apartment, right? If you have a long-term renter, then yeah, you kind of lose control. So I put it on Airbnb, started traveling, and soon enough, I realized the big opportunity that Airbnb offered. Started talking to other people about it, realized there wasn't much education, and thus I started. I wrote the book and the podcast, and then eventually a whole business grew out of it that was completely unintentional.
Right now, you have multiple properties worldwide, as we've mentioned before. So the US, Colombia, Thailand, and of course the Philippines. What was the journey like leading to that moment? How did you start getting those properties under your belt? I mean, either your properties or, do you do rental arbitrage or?
No, I fully own those. The way that this came about was I used to have my single apartment in Amsterdam, but Amsterdam, they came out with some regulations. I think it was 2016, 2017, where you weren't allowed to Airbnb anymore unless you have a permit, but all the permits were already given out. So
of course,
I couldn't do it anymore there. I always had this dream as I was traveling of owning multiple homes in different countries where I'd like to travel to. And so I could stay, and I could stay at my own homes, when I'm traveling. So I sold the home in Amsterdam, and then with the money, I bought those other properties. And as we all know, in these countries, home prices are a lot lower. So if you're buying cash, then it makes a lot of sense to buy in those markets.
So basically, you sold your property in Amsterdam and you used the money to fund your other properties in other countries, right?
Yeah. That's right.
And then you kind of put them on Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com. And that's a lot of work. So let me ask you this. I've looked at your book, The Rise of the Get Paid for Your Pad, Overnight Success. And also you have an STR Profit Academy, right? So you teach others how to do the same thing, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I founded a company, Overnight Success, with my business partner. And we have different courses to help people grow their short-term rental companies, support them on things like revenue management. We have quite a lot of courses or educational material too on leveraging virtual assistants. Because that's a very important aspect of our business,
So you basically touch on virtual assistants in your book, my understanding, right?
Yeah, I've had a VA since when I started traveling. I started trying to figure out what I wanted to do and start some small businesses and projects here and there. And I learned about the Philippines and the virtual assistants, a lot of them are there, right? When I traveled to the Philippines in 2010, and I met a guy who was working on his laptop at a bar, and back then that was very unusual.
Yeah, it was 14 years ago, man. Of course, it was. Yeah, now it's a normal thing. You can be anywhere in the world and run your business from a laptop in a bar.
Yeah, but at that time, like I was very interested and curious about this guy, and so I asked him like, "Hey, what are you working on? You know, we're on the beach, right?"
Yeah, in Boracay, probably, no?
Yeah, I definitely went to Boracay. Actually, my one of my units is very close to Boracay. But yeah, he explained to me about how you can run businesses online from your laptop, and you can hire virtual assistants to help you. And I was like, wow, this sounds perfect to me. I can keep traveling and run my business from my laptop. So that's how I initially got introduced to the idea of hiring a virtual assistant specifically in the Philippines.
Okay, so can you share some stories on who Eric Muller is and how did you guys two meet and how did you guys decided to work together?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I interviewed Eric a couple of times on my podcast. He was running a pretty large short-term rental company out of San Diego in California. So he had over 100 properties, and he was one of the first people that I knew that were doing the master leasing, right? So he was renting all these properties and then re-renting them on Airbnb.
So he was doing the rental arbitrage, basically.
Exactly. And, that was like 10 years ago. And that was pretty, like kind of like a new model back then. Now it's gotten very popular. But anyway, I interviewed him on my podcast a couple of times just because I was interested in his business and thought he'd bring a lot of value to our audience. And a couple of years later, we came up with the idea of starting masterminds, right? So we hired or we rented like a big villa in Puerto Rico, and we invited successful short-term rental operators to come over and mastermind for 4 days. And this shirt is actually from that mastermind. That was back in 2019. So that's how we started working together. We realized that we were both have very opposite skill sets and opposite weaknesses as well. So we realized there's a lot of synergy of us working together. And yeah, that's how we started working together.
Could you dive into this and maybe explain to people what it is with the rental arbitrage?
It's a pretty simple model. Basically what you do, you find an apartment or a home or whatever type of space it could be. You then sign a long-term lease on that home. So you become the renter, essentially. You talk to the landlord and, I recommend you bring forward your intention of re-renting it. There's people that don't do that, which I don't think is, I don't really recommend that. But yeah, then, once you have the approval, well, you want to get the approval before you rent it. But if you find somebody who wants to give you that approval, then you can literally list that home on Airbnb and other booking platforms and, just run it as a short-term rental. So you're paying the lease, paying for the utilities and whatnot, but then the income that you're generating through the short-term rental side, oftentimes that could be like, 50 to like 100% higher than what you're paying for the lease, right? So that's why they call it arbitrage, right?
I essentially look at it the same way as if you're to run a shop and you rent a commercial space for your shop. So you still pay the rent to your landlord on the commercial space, but whatever business income you generate is yours to keep. So this is just a way of looking at the STR as the business generation. You basically run as a business. I personally prefer to own because I like my properties to appreciate. And also whenever you sell, I think you can also sell your property not only as the piece of real estate like a house, but you can sell it as business. Let's say it's an income generating property where you can, justify your profits. You can basically sell it as a business if you decide to do that, which I think could probably get more than just for a simple house.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Our current business, we also follow the ownership model. So we acquire the assets that we rent out.
But again, rental arbitrage is something that you can scale if you want to. What do you think usually pros and cons of rental arbitrage?
Well, let's start with the pros, right? Compared to like acquiring properties, as you mentioned,
so much money up front.
Yeah, because obviously you have to pay like a couple months of rent, maybe deposit, buy some furniture, but probably for like 10, 15K, like you could get these set up, and then with the cash flow, you can put it back into the business. So, there's my business partner, he scaled that company in a couple of years from 0 to 100 listings, right? So that's a pro. Another pro is that you're more or less in control of the home, so you don't have to deal with homeowners, right? Because there's another model that's called management model where you manage the home for somebody else, but you don't own that home. right? So then you have to deal with essentially like a client. You have clients, you have your guests, and you have the homeowners as clients as well. So you definitely have to add some customer support and stuff. But yeah, so that, those are kind of the pros. And the biggest con is it's risky because, and we experienced this during COVID. A lot of rental arbitrage companies went belly up because they were scaling so fast, but then the market collapsed and they couldn't pay their rents anymore. And so a lot of them had to break their leases or just let go of their leases, negotiate with the landlords. And it got pretty messy. And there's several big companies like Stay Alfred is an example. Lyric is a big example. I think they had over 1,000 units. These companies all went bankrupt because they took too much risk. So, you got to be a little bit careful, especially if you're scaling. If you find a home here and there, that's a good opportunity. I mean, it's okay. But yeah, if you have like 50 or 100 leases and the market goes down, you might be in trouble.
That's it. You might be in trouble. Exactly. Yeah. So let's switch gears a little bit. And I wanted to talk to you how you run your company. As far as I know, you're using virtual assistants. How many virtual assistants do you have who work for you right now in managing of your properties?
We used to have like quite a few of them, but we actually started a new company recently that's called FreeWild. So we're in the very early stages. So right now we only have one virtual assistant, but she's been with us for like 3 years or so. But yeah, in the near future, we'll probably be hiring. Eventually we want to have like a 24-hour customer support. So we'd have at least 4 or 5, maybe up to 6, 7 virtual assistants to run our communications and a number of other things in our business.
So whenever do you utilize virtual assistant in management of your short-term rentals?
Absolutely. Yeah.
How do you do that? I mean, a lot of people like who get into the Airbnb, they usually hire on-site manager for 15-20% of the check, but sometimes people look into getting a virtual assistant instead. So how does it work?
Well, and just to be clear, so if you have an Airbnb, let's say, there's 2 ways to manage it. You can self-manage, right? Where you do all the work. You don't hire a management company, or you hire a management company. Now we are, as FreeWild, we are a management company.
You're managing for others as well, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
If you self-manage, it's great to have a full-time VA because you can also utilize the virtual assistants to help you out on the personal side, right? If you want to book flights or whatever you need, you can, and that's how I used to do it. When I just had like a couple Airbnbs, I just had a full-time virtual assistant, but she would only spend maybe 20-30% of her time managing my Airbnbs because it's not a full-time job when you have like 2 units, The other times she was just helping me with personal stuff, with email and, all sorts of admin tasks. But now for our management company, our VA is 100% full-time helping us out with guest communication. That's the biggest one, right? So the messages, guest picking up the phone, she contacts our cleaners when there's maintenance issues. Let's say guest calls and let's say the toilet's clogged. It's a classic, right?
Dispatches the handyman, right?
Exactly. You gotta basically if you have an Airbnb, like the only thing that's done on the ground is the cleaning and the maintenance. Everything else is online, right? So everything else can be outsourced.
Exactly. That's what I do. For my personal Airbnbs down in Florida, where we have cleaners, we have handyman, and the person coordinates all of this online, that she doesn't have to be there. The cleaners take pictures before and after. When the guest leaves and sends her pictures when she completes the cleaning, she sends pictures. So we see everything's good. If anything's missing, then the cleaner goes on the checklist and just, marks it off, and the virtual assistant orders it from the store. So whenever it gets delivered, so the maid can actually set it up, everything, so it can be done. So you got to have people on the ground. Is your essential people are cleaners and the handyman to fix stuff, but everything else can be done 100% remotely. So that's a good something for people who are self-managed. You're right. If you're self-managing, you may have a virtual assistant who this person is not going to be, if you don't have a lot of properties, this person probably won't be as busy. But if you have, let's say, 5-10 properties, obviously this person will be busy, especially during the busy season, like the spring break down in Florida, So since you incorporated virtual assistants into your workflow, obviously you've probably freed up some time, right? What do you do in your personal life?
Well, I like to be active. So I live here in California. I think I'm the only person who doesn't own a car here, but I have a bicycle.
Nice. Well, you're from Amsterdam. Of course, you're going to own a bicycle.
Exactly. And out of the people that own bicycles, I think 90% of them now have a electric motor. or engine on their bike. So it's very hilly here. So yeah, going on bike rides, I do that all the time. Going to the gym, going on hikes, going skiing. I like to kite surf as well. Anything with the ocean and mountains, I enjoy doing. So yeah, I like to stay active.
It's kind of hard to live in Southern California without a car, man. I'm surprised you're able to pull it off.
Well, when we moved here, I went to the car dealer and I was about to buy a car, but then I realized I was like, if we have a car in front of our house, like anywhere we want to go, we're going to jump in the car.
Of course you will.
And
So does your VA help you with your podcast as well?
yeah, for sure. Just publishing the episodes, creating the show notes, and all that stuff. Yeah, that's pretty standard, I think.
Yeah, if you're on a podcast, you got to have somebody in the background. Like we currently have right now, we're in a podcast, but we have people in the background who are, monitoring things. And then later they'll be uploading it, repurposing the content for your social media. So that's also something to do, something to consider. Jasper, thank you very much for your time, my man. It's been a pleasure. So I just want to, say thank you. And I've just followed you on Instagram. I'll definitely be looking out for your content, more of your content. Hopefully we can meet up again.
Well, thanks for having me. And to whoever is listening, highly recommend hiring a virtual assistant. Makes your life more easy. And
exactly.
Yeah. See you next time.
I just had a great conversation with Pavel about creating content to scale your business.
Click the link, check it out. Click the link below. Again, I highly endorse Virtudesk if you're going to save time, money, and resources. Click the link down below.
Click on the link down below.
How to make your brand stand out in the real estate industry.